Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a stack of sources you've shared, and today, well, we're plunging into a really big one. Key insights from David Allen's Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity.
That's right. We're drawing from excerpts of a book that's been incredibly influential in the productivity space. David Allen, he's not just an author,
Right.
He spent over 35 years as a management consultant and executive coach working with some huge organizations like New York Life, the World Bank. His methods have been featured all over, Fast Company, the New York Times, and the Books International.
So our mission here really is your mission, to help you get a quick, well-informed handle on this whole methodology without having to read it cover to cover.
Exactly.
I want to pull out those most important nuggets, the practical stuff that can actually help you deal with this constant flood of information, manage all your commitments without feeling, well, buried.
Okay, so let's dive into the core problem Allen really identifies. He talks about this kind of paradox, right? In the new millennium, our quality of life, it's undeniably better in many ways. More options, more opportunities than ever. But that comes with this hidden cost. Added stress. We're taking on more, maybe more than our resources can handle. And all those possibilities, they create this constant pressure.
And he points out how work itself has just fundamentally changed. We've shifted from, assembly line work, where your job had clear edges,
Totally clear. Physical boundaries.
to knowledge work,
Yeah.
which is often abstract and, well, it never feels done.
Yeah.
And that shift, he says, happened way faster than our sort of coping mechanisms could adapt.
Precisely. And the consequence, well, it's this relentless information overload, new stuff coming at you constantly. It creates this don't miss the train syndrome.
Yeah, I got to catch everything.
So you have to. So people are walking around with their mental RAM just bursting, trying to juggle dozens, maybe hundreds of things they think they need to remember or do.
It's like trying to keep 1,000 browser tabs open in your head,
Yeah.
all yelling for attention.
That's a great analogy. And the cognitive science, the research actually backs this up. Our mental processes are genuinely hampered by this burden, trying to keep track of everything we've committed to finish without a trusted system outside our heads to hold it all.
Right.
These uncaptured loose ends, these incompletions, they create what Allen calls debilitating psychological noise.
Debilitating psychological noise. Wow, that really hits home. It's that, low-level hum of anxiety, isn't it? That feeling of things nagging at you from the back of your mind, even when you're trying to focus.
That's the noise. So if that feeling sounds familiar to you, that mental overload, being constantly poked by undone things, well, that's the core problem this GTD methodology is designed to solve.
And the solution, the goal state it aims for,
Yeah.
is this beautiful name,
Sure.
achieving mind like water.
That's the goal. He
Yeah.
uses that metaphor, yeah. It describes a state where your mind is, well, empty, ready for anything, open, all your resources, your faculties are just working at their best.
Like water responding perfectly to a pebble or a boulder.
Exactly. Effortless response. The GTD methodology shows you how to get back to that state, or get there in the first place.
Okay, so how does it actually propose we get there? What are the fundamentals, the basic moves?
It really boils down to 3 core objectives initially, and then ways to maintain and use it. The first objective is just crucial, capturing all things.
Yeah.
Anything that might need doing or have some usefulness later
Yeah.
in a logical, trusted
Oh, it's
system.
outside your head. That's the key part.
Outside your, yes,
Yeah.
everything. Even that tiny little thought that just popped in.
Everything.
Everything, seriously. The second objective is directing yourself to make clear front-end decisions about all the inputs you encounter. So you always have a workable inventory of actual...
Next actions. Not just a pile of stuff.
Exactly, not
Got
a
it.
pile of maybes. Clarity on the very next thing that moves it forward.
Got it. And the third.
Curating and coordinating all that stuff you've captured and clarified. Recognizing you have multiple levels of commitments going on. From the quick phone call to the massive project, all the way up to maybe your life's purpose.
And the source says these methods are practical, common sense, but people report them as, transformational, even with small changes.
That's what he notes. They're based on simple behavioral things, but the real power comes from applying them consistently.
All right, let's get down to those foundations then. Capture, clarify, organize. Tell us about capture.
Okay, capture. The primary challenge here, as the source really emphasizes, is just getting everything out of your head. Simple as that, but hard to do.
Because most people's commitments are still just swirling around up there.
Exactly. Obligations, ideas, reference stuff, it's all mixed together. The goal is to gather all incompletes. And that means both the physical stuff lying around,
Papers, mail, notes.
right, And the mental stuff, obligations, ideas, through something he calls a mind sweep.
Okay, so physically, you collect all that miscellaneous stuff, papers, notes, mail, receipts, whatever's loose, and put it all into an in tray. He's pretty big on having a dedicated workspace for this, right?
Very big on it. Recommends separate, stackable trays. Even says try not to share that processing space if you can avoid it. Just keeps things clearer.
So one physical collection point. That makes sense. What about the mental side? The mind sweep.
Yeah, the mind sweep, the recommendation is quite specific here. Write out each thought, each idea, each project, each thing that has your attention on a separate sheet of paper.
Whoa, separate sheets. That sounds like a lot of paper. Just for thoughts. Why?
It forces you to treat each item as its own distinct thing later, when you have to decide what it is and what to do about it. And he really stresses avoid judging things during this phase.
Don't decide, oh, that's not important or that's too big.
Exactly. Don't filter yet. Even tiny things take up mental bandwidth, contribute to that psychological noise if they're not captured externally. Get it out.
So the absolute first step, just dump everything out of your head, onto paper, or into the tray.
Completely. Gather everything before you even think about clarifying or organizing anything. Alan says you can only really feel good about what you're not doing when you know objectively everything you're not doing.
That's powerful. Knowing the full scope.
It is. It can feel maybe a bit overwhelming at first, doing that big sweep, but it's necessary, like a purge. And critically, don't get sidetracked trying to file things or finish tasks during collection. Just capture.
Just get it out, even if it's already on some other list somewhere.
Yeah, initially reevaluate everything through this process. Get it all into one holding pattern.
Okay, massive brain dump done, physical stuff gathered, it's all in the in tray or on those separate sheets. Now what? Clarify.
Clarifying. Okay, this means going through all that collected stuff item by item and deciding two things. What is this thing? And crucially, what action is required? Then you dispatch it. Send it where it needs to go.
And the critical question you ask about every single item.
It's simple, but powerful. What's the next action?
That sounds almost too simple. How does he define next action exactly?
It's the next physical, visible activity, something you can actually do that's needed to move the current reality of this thing towards completion.
Okay, physical, visible, like what?
Well, his examples are good. It's not plan budget meeting. That's too vague. It's draft thoughts for budget meeting agenda. Or not fix leaky faucet, but maybe call Fred, rename, and number of repair shop you mentioned.
So really concrete, like talk to Angela about the filing system we need to set up.
Exactly. It forces you to think really concretely about the very first step you can take. Because as he points out, you don't do a project, you only do action steps related to it.
Right, you do the steps, and eventually the project gets done.
Enough of the right steps done consistently, that's what completes a project. Yeah.
Got it. And when you pick something up from your in tray, to clarify, there's a rule, right?
Yeah.
About putting it back.
Yes. The one-way path out of in. He's adamant about this. Once you pick something up from in to process it, you never put it back into in.
Never.
Never. You decide right then what to do with it. Is it actionable? Reference. Trash. And where does it go next? This stops that habit of just shuffling things around, what he calls emergency scanning.
Just looking for the easy stuff or the loudest thing?
Instead of processing systematically.
Right. Okay, so you've looked at an item, asked what's the next action. What are your options then? Where does it go?
Okay, once you know the next action, there are basically three main pathways. One, do it.
Do it when?
Now. If the action takes less than 2 minutes, just do it immediately. This is the famous 2-minute rule.
Ah, the 2-minute rule. I've heard of that.
It's brilliant. He points out how much stuff you can actually clear out during the processing phase this way. Those little nagging things that take up way more mental space than they deserve, gone.
Okay, so do it if under 2 minutes. What else?
2, delegate it. If you're not the right person to do it, hand it off. But, and this is critical, if you delegate, you must track that handoff somehow.
So you don't forget you're waiting for it.
Exactly. This leads to the waiting for category or list, and always record the date you delegated it. Super important for follow-up.
Makes sense. Do it, delegate it. What's the third?
3, defer it. If it takes longer than 2 minutes, and it's definitely yours to do, but just not right now, you defer it.
And this is where the organizing system comes in, to hold these deferred actions.
Precisely. That's where you need lists or folders to park these actions until you're ready to tackle them later.
And he also mentions incubating items.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, incubating. These are things you might want to think about later, but there's no real action right now. They're not active projects yet, but maybe potentially valuable ideas, reminders, possibilities.
Like learn Spanish or research vacation spots.
Exactly, things like that. These can go onto a someday maybe list or into something called a Tickler file.
A Tickler file. Okay, what exactly is that? Sounds intriguing.
Huh. It does, doesn't it? Think of it basically as a future-dated reminder system. It tickles your memory later.
How does it work?
It can be physical, like a set of 43 folders, 31 numbered for the days of the current month, and 12 labeled for the months of the year. You drop a note in for the specific future date you want to see it again.
Oh, okay. So on June 9th, you check the 9 folder.
Right, and at the end of the day, that empty 9 folder goes to the back, ready for next month. Or, of course, you can do it digitally. Set a reminder on your calendar or task app to surface a specific note or email on a future date.
The point is getting it off your mind now, but trusting you'll see it again when it's relevant.
That's exactly it. Ensures you won't forget, but frees up your mental RAM today.
Okay, so we've captured everything, clarified the next action for each item, maybe done the 2-minute ones, delegated some. Now we need to organize all those deferred items and the reference stuff. What does organized really mean in this system?
Organized here simply means that where something is located matches what it means to you, how you need to engage with it. It's about creating and managing lists or folders or groupings of items that share similar characteristics or contexts.
Could be a physical file folder, a list on paper.
Or a list in software, yeah. The tool doesn't matter as much as the principle. You're sorting those actions you decided to defer, the ones taking longer than 2 minutes.
Okay, how do you sort them? What are the main categories?
Well, there are 2 basic kinds of actions to organize. First, actions that must be done on a specific day or at a specific time. Where do those go?
On the calendar, right.
Exactly. Appointments, things absolutely due that day. He's very specific. The calendar is for the hard landscape. Time-specific actions, day-specific actions that have to happen that day, or day-specific info you need on that day.
Not just a wish list of things you hope to do.
Definitely not. It's not for informal if I get around to it lists. Those kill the calendar's integrity.
Okay, so calendars for the hard edges. What about the other deferred actions, the ones you need to do ASAP, but not on a specific date?
Those go on your next actions lists. And these lists, Alan says, are really the heart of your daily action management once the system is running. This is where you look when you have time to actually do stuff.
And the source lists some common categories for these next actions lists to make them more useful.
Yes, and they're usually based on context, like calls, at computer, errands, at office, at home, anywhere. Agendas, that's a key one. Lists of things to discuss with specific people or in specific meetings. Read review.
Ah, context. So if you have your phone in 5 minutes, you look at your calls list.
Bingo. You don't have to scan a giant master list trying to find a phone call you can make. You're already in phone mode. Just look at the calls list.
Yeah.
It leverages your energy and tools efficiently.
That makes so much sense. When you're out running errands, you pull up the errands list. Simple.
Exactly. Now, what about those things you delegated? Or things you're waiting on from someone else?
That goes on the waiting for list you mentioned.
Correct. Super important list. Anything you're waiting to get back from someone or something you need someone else to do before you can proceed. Tracking this is essential because it prompts you to follow up if things stall.
And note the date you started waiting.
Always note the date. Helps you gauge if follow-up is needed.
Okay, actions handled? What about information? Stuff you might need later but doesn't require action right now, like, I don't know, meeting notes, articles, manuals.
Reference material. Yeah, organizing this is critical too. You need a simple, accessible, general reference filing system, both physical and digital.
For items with no immediate action, but potential future value.
Right, and the key is it must be fast and easy to file things away, like less than a minute. If filing is hard, stuff piles up.
Guilty is charged with digital clutter.
Huh. We all are. The source notes that unprocessed, unorganized reference material also produces that debilitating psychological noise and blocks workflow, just like undone tasks. Digital makes it easy to accumulate, right? Search is great, but having some structure that makes sense to you is really helpful, so you know where to look or where to put things.
Okay, reference organized. What about those other deferred items? The ones we decided to incubate earlier. Not active projects, but possibilities.
Those go on the someday maybe list. This is for all those non-actionable items you might want to reassess later.
Like the trip ideas, books to read.
Potential future projects, major life decisions you're not ready to tackle, skills to learn, Alan emphasizes these aren't just throwaway lists. They can hold some of your most interesting creative possibilities, things you want to remember but can't act on now.
And you can use calendar triggers to remind yourself to look at this list sometimes.
Yeah, good idea. Maybe review travel ideas every quarter or books to read when you finish one. Keeps it alive without cluttering your main action lists.
So capture, clarify, organize. That's the initial sweep and the structure of the system.
That's the core structure. And it's really vital to remember what Alan points out. The tool you use, paper, an app, fancy software that doesn't give you stress-free productivity.
The method does?
The method does. The structure you create, the lists, the folders, they just support the process. Makes applying the method easier. He uses the analogy, a great hammer doesn't make a great carpenter, but a great carpenter wants a great hammer.
Nice. Okay, system built. Now the big challenge, keeping it alive, trusting it day after day. How do you maintain control?
Ah, yes. That brings us to the weekly review. This is arguably the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. Alan calls it the master key to maintaining the system and genuinely trusting it.
The master key.
Yeah.
Why is it so essential? Can't the system just run itself once it's set up?
Well, things inevitably get out of whack. During the week, with operational intensity, new stuff comes in constantly, plans change, especially in our always-on world, right?
Yeah, things change fast.
You just can't do the necessary regrouping, the recalibrating, while you're in the thick of getting daily work done. You need dedicated time to step back, get perspective.
He uses that great comparison, doesn't he, to cleaning up before vacation.
It's such a powerful analogy. Think about it. Most people feel best, most in control, the week before they go on vacation. Why?
Because they've cleared the decks, tied up loose ends.
Exactly. They've captured, clarified, organized, and renegotiated everything precisely so they can relax. Alan's point is, why only do that once or twice a year? Do it weekly. Bring that same sense of completion, control, and presence to your everyday life.
Wow, yeah, doing that weekly instead of yearly. That's a perspective shift. What are the core steps involved in this weekly review, based on the source?
The source outlines them pretty clearly, often grouped into two phases, getting clear and getting current. First, getting clear.
Okay, what does getting clear involve?
It's about emptying all your collection buckets back to zero. So collect any loose papers, notes, materials lying around, get them into your in-tray. Then get your main in-systems empty, process all your email inboxes, physical in-tray, voicemails, text messages, meeting notes, down to zero. Clarify and organize each item.
Everything processed.
And do a quick empty your head sweep, just like the initial capture. Jot down anything else that's popped up during the week and isn't in the system yet. Use those separate sheets if it helps.
Okay, so back to zero on incoming stuff and anything new rattling around in your head.
Yeah.
Then getting current.
Yes. This is about reviewing and updating the system itself. So, review your next actions lists, mark off everything you've completed, add any new next steps that have become clear, review your previous calendar data, look back maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Why look back?
To catch any actions, notes, or follow-ups you might have missed in the heat of the moment, like, oh yeah, I met that person last Tuesday, I need to send them that link. Or unfinished items from past days.
Gotcha. Catching stray actions. What else in getting current?
Review your upcoming calendar. Look ahead. See what's coming up that might require preparation, projects to activate, information to gather. Then, review your waiting for list. Crucial.
Check if you need to nudge anyone.
Exactly. See if follow-up is needed on anything you've delegated or are expecting back. And importantly, mark off anything that has come in. Clear the decks. And finally, review your projects list and any related larger outcome lists.
What do you do in reviewing projects?
Evaluate the status of each active project. Critically, ensure there's at least one current next action defined for every single active project. If not, figure one out right then. And maybe browse any support materials related to your projects just to keep them fresh in your mind.
The goal seems to be ensuring your brain is clear of all that old noise, right? All loose ends are captured, clarified, organized. Outdated reminders are gone. Active lists are totally up to date and complete.
That's it exactly. The whole point is to get your external system so complete, so current, so reliable that your brain finally trusts it. Let's go. Stops trying to hold on to things itself, stops constantly trying to remind you. That's where the peace comes from.
And finding the right time and place for this weekly review, that sounds critical. Otherwise, it just gets skipped.
It really is. Alan notes it just becomes necessary if you want to maintain your personal standards of control and perspective. You often have to deliberately kind of trick yourself into setting aside those couple of hours weekly.
Get away from your desk, maybe.
Yeah, maybe go to a coffee shop or a different room, somewhere you can rise above the daily grind and get that necessary perspective on your work, not just be buried in it.
Okay, system set up, maintained with the weekly review. Now, how do you actually use it? Moment to moment, making choices about what to do right now, engaging with the work.
Right, because the fundamental purpose of this whole elaborate workflow process, it's simply to help you make good choices about what you're doing at any given point in time.
Like, it's 10:33 a.m. on a Monday. What do I do next?
Exactly. You probably have dozens, maybe hundreds of things you could do across all your lists. How do you decide what's the best use of your time and energy right then?
You trust your gut, maybe, because your mind isn't cluttered trying to remember everything.
That's a huge part of it. Yes. Once you've captured, clarified, organized, and reflected, assuming your system is current, thanks to that weekly review, you can actually bring your intuitive judgment to the table, backed up by intelligent, practical thinking about the realities of your situation.
And the source gives specific factors to consider when you're choosing what action to take from your lists.
Yes. Assuming your system is current, you make your decision primarily by considering three things. 1, context.
Where are you? What tools do you have?
Exactly. At your computer, look at the computer list. Out running errands, check the errands list. Got your phone, look at calls. Simple as that. 2, time available.
How much time do you actually have right now?
Right. 5 minutes. An hour. Pick something from the relevant context list that fits the time window you realistically have.
Right.
3, energy level.
That's a good one. How much gas is in the tank?
Yeah. How much mental and physical energy do you have? Some tasks need focus, others are almost mindless. Choose something that matches your current energy. Alan even suggests including some really easy loops to close quick, low-energy tasks on your lists. Doing those can build momentum.
Context, time, energy. That makes it super practical, doesn't it? Takes the guesswork out.
It really does. He mentions a fourth criterion, priority, which comes into play more when you're evaluating your whole system against your bigger goals, like during the weekly review. But for those moment-to-moment choices from your action lists, context, time, and energy are your main filters.
He also has an interesting take on interruptions, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, this is where having that trusted system really changes the game. He suggests that there aren't really genuine interruptions in the sense of unwelcome derailments if you have a system to process them.
And if you feel comfortable about everything else, you're not doing it that moment.
Exactly. Without a system, every new email, every person stopping by your desk feels like an interruption because it just adds to the mental pileup, the anxiety.
Right. Oh, great. Another thing to remember.
But with a system, a surprise is just another input. You capture it. You quickly clarify it. 2-minute rule. Delegate. Defer. Organize it into the system. And then you can flexibly decide, is this the new most important thing to do based on context, time, energy? Or does it just wait patiently in the system until later?
So it's not an interruption. It's just data to be processed.
Yeah.
And then you can consciously choose whether to pivot or return to what you were doing without losing track of anything.
That's the freedom it gives you. Flexibility without stress. At a master level, Alan says, this methodology builds the skill of shifting quickly between different kinds of tasks and using those small pockets of time really effectively.
Like reviewing lists while you're on hold?
Yeah, or processing a few simple emails while waiting for a meeting to start. Reading reference material, making a quick call from your calls list. It lets you leverage those little moments productively.
Beyond the day-to-day actions, the system also seems designed to help you think about bigger things, the higher-level stuff.
It absolutely does. While the initial focus for most people is just clearing the decks of daily tasks, getting that ground level under control, the system provides a framework for much higher-level thinking. The source introduces the 6-level model for reviewing your work.
Okay, what are the levels?
It goes from the bottom up.
Right.
Ground level is your current actions, all those next actions on your list. Horizon 1 is current projects outcomes requiring more than one action. Horizon 2 is areas of focus and accountability, your key roles and responsibilities, like job functions, health, finances, family.
So the big buckets of your life.
Right. Then Horizon 3 is goals, things you want to achieve in the next 1-2 years. Horizon 4 is long-term visions, looking out 3-5 years or more. And finally, Horizon 5 is life purpose and principles, the ultimate why and the guiding values.
Wow. So you can use this framework for strategic thinking, planning your life.
Absolutely. Now, while ideally you'd think alignment flows from the top down, Your actions support your purpose. Alan suggests that practically, starting bottom up is often most effective.
Clear the ground level first.
Yes. Get the daily chaos under control. Clear your mental space. That often reveals what truly has your attention right now, what projects are actually active. You deal with what's present and most on your mind first. That creates the bandwidth, the clarity, to then think effectively about those higher horizons.
That makes a lot of intuitive sense. You can't really think clearly about your life purpose if your brain is buzzing with 50 unread emails and overdue calls.
Precisely. Then there's project thinking at Horizon 1. The system isn't just about doing tasks. It helps you engage with your projects more frequently, more easily, more in depth. Alan describes a natural planning process that our brains kind of do anyway when faced with achieving something complex. You define the desired outcome, you brainstorm options, you organize the steps, and you define the very next action. The GTD system just provides triggers and structures to make you apply this process consistently to all your projects, not just the urgent ones.
And he connects this all the way up to the highest levels, purpose and principles.
Yeah, purpose is your fundamental why. As the source puts it, if you're not sure why you're doing something, you can never do enough of it. Powerful, right? Principles are the how, the standards, the values that guide your actions. Your vision or desired outcome is the what you're aiming for. Reviewing these levels, maybe during the weekly review, maybe in less frequent higher level reviews, helps ensure your daily grind is actually moving you towards what matters most.
He gives some interesting tips for the brainstorming part to that natural planning process too.
Yeah, the keys to effective brainstorming within this model are pretty standard but crucial. Don't judge, challenge, or criticize ideas during the brainstorming phase itself. Just generate.
Quantity over quality at first.
Exactly. Go for quantity. Get it all out there. Keep the analysis and organization part of your brain, sort of, in the background while you're just generating ideas. Tools like mind mapping or just a whiteboard or easel pad are great because they help you capture ideas externally.
Getting it out of your head helps you have more ideas.
It really does. Seeing your ideas laid out visually often sparks new connections and thoughts you wouldn't have had if they were still just rattling around inside.
And the power of defining that single next action, even for a really huge, complex, maybe kind of scary project.
Oh, it's immense. He argues it intelligently dumbs down the overwhelming complexity into a single, doable physical task.
Like draft email to Susan asking for the report.
Exactly. Something concrete. This immediately relieves that psychological pressure, that anxiety about the huge gap between here and done, and it increases motivation because you know exactly what you need to do next. It forces clarity on issues that might otherwise feel too vague or overwhelming, the ones you might consciously or unconsciously avoid. Without a defined next action, a project can just hang there, feeling like this infinite anxiety-inducing burden.
The system also seems to directly address something Alan flags as a huge source of stress. These broken agreements we make with ourselves.
Absolutely. That feeling, right? You tell yourself, you should do something, I should work out more, I need to organize those photos, I really ought to call that client back, and then you don't.
Creates that internal conflict. Guilt, maybe?
Yeah, guilt, frustration, a sense of being out of integrity with yourself. It's a constant internal drain.
So how does GTD help you deal with those broken agreements once you've presumably captured them?
Well, once an incomplete is captured and you're clarifying it, Alan presents 3 basic options for dealing with it, for resolving that broken agreement. 1, decide not to make the agreement after all.
Just consciously decide, nope, not doing this.
Right. Choose not to do it. Then you might trash the note or maybe file it in someday, maybe if you might reconsider later. But you release yourself from the obligation now. 2, complete the agreement.
Meaning, do the next action.
Yep. Just do the next physical action required to move it forward. Start fulfilling the commitment. Or 3, renegotiate the agreement.
Renegotiate.
Just yourself.
With yourself. Reevaluate the commitment realistically, now that you see it in the context of everything else you've captured. Maybe it's not a today thing, after all. Maybe it truly belongs on the someday maybe list. Maybe it needs to be broken down into much smaller steps to feel achievable. You modify the agreement based on current reality.
And the crucial point is, you can't renegotiate agreements you don't even remember making, or that are just this constant vague background hum of shoulds. Exactly. That's the core insight here. Those uncaptured things swirling in your head, they take up energy because some part of your psyche feels like you should be doing them all the time right now.
It's all present tense in there.
It is. He explains that as soon as you mentally commit to 2 things, like call mom and finish report and don't put them in a trusted system, you've created instant stress and failure. Because you can't do both at once, but that part of your brain holds you liable for both simultaneously 204/7 until they're done or captured.
Wow. So the power of getting everything out into that objective inventory. It's not just about making neat lists. It's about giving yourself the permission, the data, to realistically assess and renegotiate all those commitments.
It absolutely is. Putting everything into that external system lets you see the full landscape of everything you've said yes to, explicitly or implicitly. You can then think about it rationally and renegotiate those commitments with yourself based on reality, not just vague internal pressure or guilt.
Which must make it much easier to say no to new things, too.
So much easier, you can say no with integrity because you can see everything else you're already committed to. Getting things out of your head, he says, automatically prompts this renegotiation process. It significantly reduces stress and that awful feeling of being held liable for things you've forgotten or things you might miss.
The source also talks about different tiers of mastery with this methodology. It's not just about managing email, is it?
Not at all. It describes sort of 3 tiers on the path to mastery. The first tier is just employing the fundamentals effectively, getting your day-to-day workflow under control, feeling less overwhelmed.
Okay, basic competence. What's next?
The second tier is moving towards integrated life management. This is where you're using the system not just for work tasks, but to handle all aspects of your life more holistically.
Integrated life management. Like using the system to consciously steer your life more broadly.
Exactly. Steering your life on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. By regularly reviewing not just projects, but those higher horizons, especially Horizon 2, your areas of focus. Your key roles and accountabilities: professional, financial, health, family, community, personal development.
Reviewing those areas makes you think about whether you're neglecting something.
Precisely. Reviewing those prompts you to ask, am I putting enough attention here? Are there projects or actions I need to add to address this area? It ensures a more balanced focus across your whole life.
Okay, fundamentals, integrated life management, and the highest level.
Tier 3 is leveraging the external mind for expansive expression. This sounds fancy, but it means using the system not just reactively to manage incoming stuff, but proactively.
How so? Proactive.
Using your organized system, your lists, your reference files, your someday maybe items as a catalyst for new creative ideas and opportunities. Things that wouldn't have just occurred to you otherwise.
Like reviewing an old project list sparks a new venture. Or scanning someday maybe triggers a connection.
Exactly. Or browsing through your contacts list reminds you of someone you could collaborate with. Or reviewing reference material on one topic suddenly connects to another. It's using the external brain you've built to generate novel thoughts, not just manage existing commitments. That's proactive creative use.
And ultimately, what are the deeper benefits? If someone really commits to this, lives this way, what's the promise?
Well, the source highlights a whole range of benefits, really, from the practical to the almost spiritual. Obviously, achieving that stress-free productivity, getting to that state of mind like water.
That clarity and calm.
Yeah. But also a release of creative energies, energy that was previously tied up in just trying to remember everything, manage the overwhelm. Freedom to fully engage in the things that are most meaningful to you because you trust the operational details are handled.
So more capacity for the important stuff.
Right. It leads to an increased ability to actually make things happen, follow through, which naturally fosters higher self-esteem, a more constructive, positive outlook. And maybe crucially, it increases your ability to handle the inevitable problems, conflicts, and surprises that life throws at you more productively, more resourcefully, because your mind isn't already overloaded. It's clear and ready to engage.
It really sounds like it brings a fundamental sense of control and perspective back into a world that often feels just relentlessly overwhelming.
That really is the essence of it, I think. It provides focus, it clarifies your commitments, all of them, and it offers this reliable, trustworthy framework for engaging with the sheer complexity of modern life productively and hopefully more peacefully.
Well, this deep dive has certainly covered a lot of ground, exploring these practical methods from David Allen's Getting Things Done, how to manage that relentless inflow of information, the weight of commitments, by systematically capturing everything.
Clarifying what it means and what the next action is.
Organizing it into a trusted system.
Reflecting on it all regularly, especially with that crucial weekly review.
And then engaging with your system using context, time, and energy to make good choices about what to do next.
Yeah, the core message really is about applying these, frankly, common sense principles, but applying them consistently and systematically. That's the key to gaining control and perspective. The profound power comes from defining outcomes, defining next actions, and most critically, getting everything externalized from your mind into a system you trust.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you some useful insights. Maybe it validated some things you already intuitively know or do while offering a clear framework to apply them more consistently, more effectively, and maybe gain some of those deeper benefits we talked about.
And perhaps it leaves us all with a question to really mull over. If your mind, as Alan suggests, is primarily designed for having ideas, for making connections, for creative insight, and not for reliably holding on to a massive inventory of past promises and future intentions, then how much creative capacity, how much mental peace are you potentially losing right now by trying to keep it all just in your head?